So this week I have been exploring the Deepmind 12 and very much enjoying creating these 80s synthwave sounding patches. And I thought in today's video I would make them up from scratch and hopefully give you some ideas when designing your own synthwave sounds. And the cool thing about this is that the techniques and building blocks of the Deepmind 12 are very similar to any other analog poly or virtual analog poly, so you will be able to do this on your own synths and VSTs, and that means that you too can feel like you're in an action movie or a dystopian nightmare. Ooh yeah, let's get started. So the first sound we're going to make is a bass sound, and it's going to be the backbone to a synthwave track, and it's going to sound like this. And as soon as you add drums to it, you get why it works so well as an 80s sounding track. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a default patch on the Deepmind, and to do that you hit Program and Compare, and we now have a default patch. And I want it to be mono, so I'm going to Poly, and up here you've got lots of different options, unison up to unison 12. 12 oscillators, one note, and we want mono, so one note at a time. And I'm going to just take the release off of the VCA envelope. Next thing I want to do is add some pulse width modulation, so I'm going to take the saw wave off so that we're just here in the square. And I'm going to use the mod matrix here, and I'm going to choose LFO1. Maybe I'll choose LFO2 actually, because that means I can use LFO1 for pitch mod if I want. So LFO2, I'll put some depth in there, about 30. And the location, the destination is going to be pulse width modulation. There are so many options in here. Let's try that one. There we go. And if we bring this down, you can already hear that the character, there's some movement happening. Nice. I'm noticing that there is some velocity which I want to take off. I just want all my bass notes to be the same volume. So I'm just going to put that down to 0. Nice. And then let's move over to the envelopes. So for the envelopes, we want to be short and snappy, and we also want filter modulation. We're already quite snappy on the VCA. Might just bring the sustain down. And one of the cool things about the Deepmind is you can actually edit not just the ADSR, but also the curves in between them, which is a really nice feature. So for the VCF, we're going to bring the filter all the way down and the envelope amount all the way up. and we want it to be very, very short. There we go. And you can experiment getting it to exactly where you want it to be. Try bringing some resonance in if you want a more squelchy bass. Nice. But I'm going to keep it kind of free of resonance. It's sounding good. I think it's time for some effects. So there's not too much to add here. The first thing I'm going to do is put the boost on just to give it a bit more beef. It seems to add more bass. And I'm actually going to do, in the effects section, I'm also going to add the amp simulator, which will also add a bit more bass. There's a lot of effects in here and they're very good. Where has it gone? There's maybe too many. Rack amp it's called, and I'm going to bring the level down here to about 50. Nice. And just to top it off, some chorus, because 80s bass and chorus really work. It gives a nice stereo spread as well. I know you're not typically supposed to put a stereo on bass, but you know, it sounds good. Yeah, so that's your bass patch. So let's design a pad, and let's start with program and compare to get a default program. And the first thing I'm going to do is again go to the poly section, but instead of mono, I'm going to choose unison 2, which is polyphonic, but there's 2 oscillators per note, and that means that we can then use the unison detune to spread the oscillators. I mean, that's just atonal and out of tune, but we want it about there. Already sounds more powerful. And like the bass patch, we're going to do some pulse width modulation. So into the mod wheel, LFO 2 again. As our source, add some depth, and destination is PWM. Nice. And actually something else we can do in the poly section is we can add some oscillator drift, which is kind of like how vintage synths never held their tuning very well. This is kind of allowing you to do this. You don't want there to be too much on, otherwise it'll be out of tune. But but a small amount, maybe, let's say 50. Just adds a bit more vintageness to it. You can hear it there, starting to go, maybe a bit much. Bring it down to 40. Now, once again, I am going to take the velocity sensitivity off. It's quite loud, isn't it? Getting there. So I think the secret to good pad sounds is attack on the envelopes. So let's start with the VCA. And we'll bring in some attack so that it fades in. Yes, and we're going to do the same on the VCF. Which will of course mean I have to bring the frequency down and the envelope amount up. Nice, let's bring it up a bit more. Yes. And you can fine tune these as you go and to your needs. Sometimes you'll be jamming and you're like, oh, I need some more release, so you just bring it up. I really like that. Another cool thing is to bring in just a bit of noise. It just gives that swell. Let's add some effects. You want to be quite subtle with the effects, not like drenched in reverb. And it's tempting to do that because the reverb in this is really nice. I'm going to bring the mix down so that it kind of trails off similar in similar lengths as the envelope. And next, I'm going to bring in some chorus. There's a chorus on here called Chorus D, which I'm going to assume is the one they use on the, maybe on the Poly D or something. Was it? Is that what it's called? So let's try some low notes. Very nice. And sometimes it's good to just have a delay on there as well, not doing much, but just adding a bit more. There's a lot of delays on here. T-ray delay, I'm not even sure what that is. It's sounding really good. Now you could tinker with this forever, but let's move on to some sound effects. So I'm in a new patch, and first thing I'm going to do is take the oscillators off. We're not using any oscillators for this patch, but we will be resonating, self-resonating the filter. There we go. Already sounds cool, man. That's a tom. Roto toms. And we're going to use the LFO to modulate the frequency. And then we can use the VCF to change that. We put a release on. There we go. And we can use the frequency here and the envelope amount to adjust that as we go. And also if we put the keyboard amount on, that's kind of like tracking the filter over the keyboard. That means that you'll get a higher effect here than you get here. And this is just a nice touch to add more character to your tune. Do you know what? Some reverb would really work on that as well. Maybe not that amount of reverb. Nice. So I hope you've enjoyed my shallow dive into the Deepmind 12. It's a very capable synth, but it's too easy to just sit and scroll through the presets, and that's why I have enjoyed making my own and designing my own patches this week. If you have liked the video, please leave a comment and a like and a subscribe and whatever. And I will be catching you soon. Take it easy.